first ran into L.F. Wilkinson in 1982. 82, 83.
Your memory's better than mine, my friend.
I would go down to Houston.
Old age.
Carl Geist Dojo and L.F. and a few others were like the gods of the place. They had the mojo. And if you wanted to get the mojo, you went down and you studied them assiduously and watched all this fine detail and amazing bits of work that came out of that place in those days. And you were a huge part of that, and I just wanted to say thank you for being here. It means a huge amount to me.
Thank you.
So L.F. Wilkinson, thank you very much. Let's bow, if you don't mind. We do the dumb little ring around the rosy. Come on. Half naked people. Okay. Okay, you ready? Thank you, L.F.
Thank you. All right. Everybody have a seat real quick. I want to thank Nick for that wonderful introduction. I've known Nick for a long time and enjoyed working with him. And since Nick did the intro, let me kind of discuss everybody real quick how I teach. I tend to be really technical about things because I've always viewed Aikido as having several levels. You have to basically lock yourself into a shoebox for a long time. And the shoebox functions by teaching you where the walls are, where the corners are, where the straight lines are. And the shoebox to me represents really tightly controlled Kihon basic fundamentals. And after you get those out of the way, then in my mind you move into more advanced kata work, like the Koryu system, in the Tomiki style is what we call it. And the Koryu system teaches the same fundamentals in a very tight fashion, but when you delve into it deeply enough, you look up and you find you're doing a lot of variations. So, and then as the variations develop and you get more involved with Randori, Toshi Randori especially, everything kind of cracks open and now you're doing less tight, straight line, square box kind of things, and it becomes more creative, and the creativity becomes formless in a sense. But there's an old saying, I can't think of who said it originally, where I heard it years ago, but you can't be formless without having form first. So the form precedes the formlessness and the creativity, so you have to be real tight in your initial practice. Okay? So how many people here are not from the Tomiki system? Most of you, okay, a few. By way of introduction, what Tomiki did initially was he looked at everything he learned and he built sets of exercises that teach fundamentals. And one of those is the 8 releases. And the 8 releases, if you're not in the Tomiki system, just by way of explanation, if we assume that he attacks with, I'm going to just do one side, but this works on both sides. If we assume he attacks with the right hand, and my left hand is behind me, or I engage the right hand first, I can come up, don't grab. I can come up on the outside or the inside. It's one or the other. It becomes a parry here or a parry here. If the same side is engaged first because of the way I'm walking, or this hand just comes up first, I can be on the outside or the inside. And so by using this as a basis, Tomiki formulated, or actually I think some of his senior students did, what we call the 8 releases, except we do them as a grab to complicate the picture. Because if I simply look at a push to the face, then this becomes pretty simple to do. It's just simply a parry, or come to the inside and pick this up here, parry it, or come up, take it across. So we complicate the picture by letting him grab, so now you've got multiple levers and hinges to deal with. And so the releases are done, the first one, for example, by moving off the side and getting behind the arm to position for a technique. That's the first one. Then I come on here, and this on the inside, I come through, come up. Now I'll go to the same side over here, come to the outside with this big motion. And on the inside here, I come through and I come up. And it's designed to teach, in a sense, a parry, because if I point to the hand in the exercise and he grabs, I do the release. It's the same thing as him coming forward and me doing a parry. The two gel together. But we complicate it by making him grab you, because now you got an extra problem, because if he pushes and I miss the parry, I can move off the side. If he grabs and I'm locked down, now I've got an extra bonus of complications. So the release is done by taking as big a step as I can, sort of a big circle concept here, and I break his posture and move to this as far as I can behind the arm. So people look at this and they go, well, why take such a big step? And the answer is, I can do it like this. It's very easy to do it this way, but the problem is, if he locks me down, it becomes very problematic, and now I have difficulty making the move and getting behind the arm. So instead I've got to break his posture down as much as I can this way. Now he's off balance, and as he recovers, I move behind the hand. So the problem that we run into, excuse me, at advanced levels, this is more of a Quijón level here where I'm being very tight with the releases, taking big steps, and he determines the length of my step. If I get halfway through and he controls me, it's very simple to shorten the step. If he really breaks the posture over, I simply move further and get behind him. If he locks me down too soon, I get the big step, my step shortens up. So I always want to focus on moving outside with the hand in front of me with good posture, but he determines the length of the step. If he gets very tight, my step is short. If he's very loose, I get a long step. But I want the big step because I can't determine when I'm going to be able to turn around. It's up to him. If I get to here and suddenly take a small step and suddenly decide to do this, he's locked me down. I can't lock me down tight. I can't move. Wouldn't lock me down. I can't move because I determined a short step when it should have been, be tight, a long step. So that's the way the releases are kind of structured. It's the idea to teach the end of the parameter, so to speak, the maximum off balance. So the problem I run into many times, especially at advanced levels, is we get sloppy. We start doing stuff like this. See, I'm turned away from him. Now I just took my left arm out of the equation entirely. I can't even use it. Or I get sloppy like this, I go, the hand turns in, I can't do anything with it. So what I wanted to go over today, with this kind of as a real brush, quick, one stroke lightly view of the problem, is go over what I refer to as, I guess, geometric positioning or randori grips. And what they're designed to do is teach a couple things. Do the release, move around, keep the left hand engaged, and at the last moment, take a grip. Because if you're going to grip this guy here, if I grip here, see how my hand turns over? So the hand's not ready yet, so I've got to come up, and as my body turns, at the last second, the grip is perfect. And now that when I have the grip hit, and it triggers a subconscious bell in his alarm system up here that goes, danger, danger, Will Robinson. He's going to grab me. It's too late because now my left hand's in play and I'm in perfect position. But anything earlier than this, if I try to grab here, my left arm's not engaged. I'm fighting one-armed. So I've got to turn completely around. So what these things do is teaches movement, positioning, enough movement and off balance, and when to make the grab. Because one of the biggest problems I've always had in randori for years is when do I grab? And I look up and we try to teach randori, and I see people doing stuff like this. You know, weird hands, weird wrist positions. Nick's seen it too, I'm sure. So if you move and you grab at the right time with the right posture, then the technique becomes pretty simple to walk through. See? So the first one is here, come up, and I want to move all the way through. Anything earlier than this creates problems for me, and now I'm not ready, but I'm starting to grab, and he senses that, and he'll roll in behind me, he'll attack my elbow, or stick a hand in my face. So part of what we're trying to do with these as a real tightly structured form of Quijón, and yes, you can do all kinds of variations on these things. I'm looking at this as basic fundamentals in terms of how to move, how to walk, how to keep both hands in the box in front of me operational, how to impact his balance, how to grab as late as I can so it doesn't trigger a bell in his system, because the sooner I try to grab, if I come up here and try to grab right here, then what does it do to his subconscious mind? Exactly, he panics. And if he's a good if he's a bad player, it doesn't matter. This is where the advanced level, beginner level really comes into play. If we're doing here and I grab and he panics and starts to go off my elbow or something, it doesn't make a difference to me. I can cope with that. But as a beginner, you can't do that. Your mind goes, what do I do? And if you have a moment's hesitation and you're not a high-level player to adapt to this problem that you just created for yourself, you'll look up, he'll attack your elbow, or there, wherever it is. So the idea is to move and get as much off balance as you possibly can at the last second. Just walk into it. Because at the point that I close my hand and I've made the full body rotation, left side, the full body rotation and grab, If he's so broken over, he couldn't stop me if he wanted to. See the problem I'm creating for him? But I have to learn patience. I have to be extremely patient in terms of what I'm doing. I can't panic and get in a hurry and start doing stuff like this, because if he's a decent player, I'll never even get this far. So what I've done with these exercises we've done the last couple of 3 years, I guess, is build a shoebox to live in for a little bit until you start breaking bad habits like doing this. And break out of habits like doing this. Because I see that, because any player, if you've been teaching long enough, you'll see all kinds of bad habits like this in people. So the idea is to get your posture down to where you move and walk into the technique, because now we can't stop anything. But you have to learn patience, and everything has to be exactly correct. You can't come up here and go, even though I can do this, and advanced teachers can do this by adaptation and changing the parameter for him, it's a bad habit to break, because I want to always practice, come up to here and over the top. And all these have endings. The exercise, the grip is here, 1, 2, but they all have an ending if you want one. So what I'd like to do is work through these. There's 8 releases. I probably got 15 or 16 grips. We might not get to all of them, but the first 4 sets are the ones that are most important. So here's the first exercise for everybody. Practice. Grab the hand, step same hand, same foot with the hand in front. Keep both hands in the middle of the box. Come all the way around. At the last second, grab. See, I've got him broken over, and then take the technique. So it's just a bunch of simple exercises, but it's designed to be a curative process for a lot of bad habits we all get into sometimes. And yes, this is not a set kata. It's a set of exercises. You can manipulate it. Once you get it down, you can change it. You can play with it a little bit. But the idea is to learn to control and sense what your posture is and move with the guy. And always be on good posture, good balance, correct hand and foot. Okay? So you want to try the first exercise for a while? I'll walk around, help you. Thanks, Deb. It's comfortable for you. You don't have to sit in Anza unless you just want to, because Anza kills my knees. I can't do it for very long. Let me make a couple of comments and add the next piece on here. Even though there's only 8 releases, actually technically there's 4. There's 4 and there's 4 fares on top of that, but there's 8 total. Even though the system only created 8 releases, each of these grips I'm looking at, in some of the releases we did 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 grips. So part of this is kind of a multi-pronged learning process. Part of this is to teach correct posture and to basically alleviate or be a curative idea for bad habits that everybody of any rank ever gets into. I find myself all the time collapsing my arm and moving things the wrong way. And sometimes I find myself saying on the wrong hand, wrong foot. And that's okay. It's part of the process of practice and learning, because you can't always be perfect all the time, even though you'd like to. It's just not possible. So you always have to be aware of the fundamentals and the key-hones and work on those over and over and over again, so that when you make a mistake, your mistake is much smaller than the opponent's mistake. That make sense? If you make a mistake in a real situation where you're fighting for your life, if you train at 105% and your system collapses because you start making mistakes, you drop to 80% efficiency. But he never trains. He drops to 40% efficiency. Who comes out ahead, theoretically? You do, because you're still more efficient, even though things didn't work the way you want them to. So this is a curative exercise to compensate for bad habits. So let's talk about a couple of bad habits, and we'll do the next one, because some of this stuff pairs up. Part of this system that we're doing in Houston is designed to teach grip recognition. When can I take a wrist lock or an elbow lock or a shoulder lock, for that matter, on the opponent? Does my subconscious mind recognize when the opening is there, without my having to spend 20 years going through all 6, the Koryu Kata, and all 52, the Goshin Ho, and the entire system? How can I learn with both hands, my right hand and my left hand, when it's appropriate to close and when he offers me a grip? Because sometimes if someone walks up there and they just kind of go, hey, grab this, is what it feels like to me. What do you do with that? I mean, do you know how to grab this? And so this is an idea of teaching grip recognition. So the first one we're looking at here is when you move, you want to keep your arm as much as possible straight. And I'm going to make a Jodo comparison. In Jo, the stick doesn't collapse. And the Jo, or the sword, is held right in front of you. And because the stick doesn't collapse, it's a stiff piece of wood that doesn't compress. When you hit the guy, you drive him back because he's got the whole body popping him right there on the end of the stick, because if the stick collapsed like this, look what, don't move. Look what happens here. I didn't do anything to him because my arm compressed. Now I've got to either re-engage my feet and push through, or I've got to take my arms and shove him off. Better, is it not, as in Joe, have an uncollapsible arm, or just go. And now he gets the whole weight of my hara, of my center, right behind the straight arm. So when you do these, if I come through and my arm collapsed at this point, I just gave up. Watch the change in his posture from my collapsed arm. I'm not going to move my feet. Watch what it does to his posture when I take my arm and straighten it out. That's all I've done is straighten it out. Watch again. I move, the arm collapses. Don't move your feet. From here to there. That's all I did was straighten my arm. So if I get in the habit of having this collapsed arm back here when I come around, because it's easier to shorten my step and take a smaller step and get into place, so to speak, then look how much off balance I just gave up on it. Why give this up to begin with? Why not keep both arms straight to where when I move, it's just like a Joe. You're punching right through with the whole weight of your body. So this is one of the things these randori grips are designed to teach, is how to keep my body geometry correct to where I'm as most efficient and can deliver the most amount of power at any given time without things collapsing like this and me having to do some kind of compensation factor halfway through. So the arms should be straight except when they shouldn't be straight. That's one of those paradoxical Zen koans, okay? So they're straight except when they shouldn't be straight. But for a drill to teach curative ideas for real basic movement and posture control and geometry between where am I relative to where he is, it can be important. So the first grip on this side, on the first release, is I come around, hands in front, I pick it up, over the top, ushitoshi. The second grip, so I learned to recognize that I come to here and I close, his hand pops open. Oh, so what I'll do with this, so a lot of times people will not recognize this unless you've done a lot of randori. So from here, just reach up, pick it up, take it down, other side, sorry. So I move. If his grip doesn't come off, I have this. If I move, the grip comes off, I close, I pick this up, I recognize that it's there. My subconscious mind has to recognize that's there. Otherwise, I'll gloss over it and ignore it. I just gave this up. See the problem you run into? Your subconscious mind has to know his exposure point, has to recognize, oh, I can take this because it's there. So now you've learned two different grips. I come to here, the first grip, over the top. Come to here, second grip, over the top. I recognize it, take him down. Now to make a connection for randori, if he pushes at my face with this hand here, there's the first grip. Parry, grip right there. His arm's straight, but it's immaterial. Or I come through, he pushes, 1, 2. See how I recognize that? There's got to be an instantaneous recognition, because if I do this, and I come up, and the hand pops off, he's a good player, he won't expose that to me for very long. So I've got to immediately recognize that that is there, and pick it up, and deal with that, and take him down. So the first two grips, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Second one, off the first release, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So everybody kind of get the idea? So work on those slow and try to keep your posture erect at all times. And when you move, try to really focus on being square to him with both hands. Don't let yourself turn like this, because now I can't use my right hand. I can't reach him. And if he's good, by the time I start the right hand and try to get into play, he just flips that over, and now the tables are totally reversed. So you want to really work on the idea of move, square to him, controlling. Know exactly where both your hands are. Move, square to him, hand pops off. There it is right there. Move, take the technique. Okay? Work on that for a bit, please, sir. Thank you. Geometric posture or position relative to him. To me, this is a study of geometry, in a sense, straight lines and angles. For the Oshita Oshi, when I come around and move, I'm square to him here, but I'm beside him. So if the hand pops off, it pops off because either he lets it go, obviously, or I move behind him further this way, I end up in the wrong position, now it pops off. Because I'm seeing a lot of folks trying to pick up Tenkai here by reaching under with this hand and trying to grab it this way, which is impossible to make work unless you're just really lucky and really strong. He's really bad. So instead, use geometry. So oshitoshi occurs here because I close. And if at this point, even if the hand pops off, it makes no difference because I've got my grip, I've got the elbow. But for the Tenkai, move around, and in a sense, view this as I end up behind him. Now it pops off. Now my arm is straight. I don't have to reach under like this. So look at the change in the angle of my arm as I move relative to him. Does that help a little bit? Try that. So view the oshitaoshi as here, whether the grip's on or not, and view the Tenkai as I've moved. He's gone slightly past me. Hand pops off. There it is right there. All right. Okay. Continue practice, please. For a few minutes, we'll start the next one in a little bit. See if that helps. I find the value for these drills and basic movements and geometry and positioning and off balance and timing is sometimes to do a little experiment with it, just to kind of not necessarily prove the point as much as experiment just to see what you can and can't do. So before we started in the second release, which I think I checked my notes, I think I got 4 or 5 variations for that, or 4 or 5 grips off the next release. Let's do an experiment with this just to play with it. Because remember, I started off by saying that if you're a high-level player, then you can do everything wrong. And as long as you do it more right than what he's doing it, you're still in pretty good shape. So you can be wrong hand, wrong foot, you can have an unbendable arm, you can walk like this, you can do all kinds of stuff. But if you're better than him, it doesn't matter in the end. But the idea is to build a really firm foundation, especially since I run a dojo. I've got to be careful my beginners have that foundation. When they get to be Dave's level, or Mr. Scott, or Grover's level, or Lynn's level, then I don't care. I mean, we do really strict kata, but if I look out and they're experiment with something, I want them to experiment, because in the end, everything's a variation of a variation. So you always want this benchmark to come back to know that your posture is correct, so you know when it's wrong. If you don't know when your posture is right, then you're not going to know when it's wrong, and you won't be able to correct it during the course of the heat of the battle, so to speak. So even though we're teaching this first release for the 2 grips, the oshitoshi and the Tenkai, with these big steps, what I want you to do now is go back and play with it. And I don't want Dave to become a bridge troll out of the Hobbit Unexpected Journey. Okay, I don't want him to go up here and go like this, just absolutely just lock me down to where my hand turns red and pops off the end of my arm. That's not the idea. Okay? So, but I want a little bit of stiffness out of him to where he's kind of controlling me, because now what I want to do is try the first release and not move my feet and have him stop me. That didn't work. So now have exactly the same pressure. So now I take a smaller step, and I can maybe do that a little bit. Now if I take a bigger step, I get more posture break, and his grip can still be strong. I move around, but he can't stop me because I'm using my body against the power of his grip. So the idea is, can you do all these things like this? Sure you can. Absolutely. But if he locks you down, you try this, and your subconscious mind doesn't have an escape hatch which says, I got to move and get around, then if I can't do that subconsciously and intuitively, just like that, he's got me. So the idea of this corrective process is to learn the big motion, to learn the big circle, to explore all the parameters slowly so I can be sure my posture's right, my hands are right, I'm looking at him, I'm moving correctly with my feet, knowing that if I just panic and something goes haywire, he grabs, I can do that, sure. So now what I want you to do is have him be a little bit stiff, not much, but just a little bit, to see, can I do it this way? Well, no. Bigger step, not quite yet. Bigger step, that's easier. Bigger step, that's really easy, because the bigger step, now locked down with both hands, the bigger step allows me to walk around him like this. And he can't stop me. But if he grabs like that, and I start doing this, I'm done. Unless I'm a really good player and can make corrective actions instantaneously. So see what I mean? Play with it a little bit, because all this stuff has parameters. It's not fixed in time and space. All we're doing is exploring how to control my posture and control his, with the understanding that I can do it other ways too. So play with this for a few minutes before we go on to the next release and the set of grips for that. How does it feel? Remember, no bridge trolls. Just be light. It's a light experiment. It's this first release and with the 2 grips that go with it. So if you play with this a little bit, my recommendation is always twofold for key home, for basic drills that build higher level skills. It's the foundation for building blocks, for getting more advanced material. One is to work reasonably slow. And the second is to work as relaxed as you can and make the motion as big as you can so you can start to build sensitivity to what they're doing, because what you'll find is the little drill we just did, where I invite Dave to become a small baby bridge troll perhaps. You can do this all day long, but pretty soon your subconscious mind starts to accept the fact that, well, it's supposed to feel like this, and I'm supposed to practice with lots of power, and pretty soon that's all you can really do, is just power Aikido with no sensitivity. So the idea of the big motion is to study the tick-tock back and forth as the steps develop, and the idea of working light and soft 95% of the time is to build the sensitivity to see what his body's doing, what's my body doing, am I at the right place at the right time, are we moving, am I getting the tick-tock, are my hands in the right position? And so there was a great article I found on Facebook, actually it was Eddie Wolput, in the European, it was on Facebook off the Tamiki Aikido group, and they did some kind of scientific study, and I have to go back and find the name of the paper, but it was a great write-up because they scientifically established the idea that slow is fast and fast is slow, that the slower you make the motion and the more precise you make the motion, but in your mind, your mind is going, I'm now driving at 245 in a nitro-fueled drag racer, and that's how fast, I'm really bearing down, I'm going fast, 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 I'm going to destroy this guy, but the physical motion is slow and precise. And so the article I found was really interesting because it talked about the idea that slow and precise, as long as you're thinking about the motion application, builds a response so that eventually you can do it at full speed, but you're so relaxed the guy can't feel you. So every once in a while, play with the bridge troll a little bit, just to see how much you have to really step as long as everything is on cue. But for the most part, practice slow and precise because that's what really counts in terms of building the precision that you need. Everything in the box, same hand and foot, everything precise. Let's look at the next two, and that'll take us about to lunchtime. I'll cover the third release tomorrow because there's like 5 variations of that, and I can get through it faster tomorrow because I don't know all the preliminary explanation. So in the second release, the way it's generally done is I'm trying to move and step off his line of attack here. I'm trying to turn this so when he grabs, I'm trying to make use of the natural curve of the arm, move behind him, and put him up on point and control him. I want to break his posture down to where I move. It's a real delicate operation, but basically I want to put him up here like this by moving. This is not generally done by taking it and wrenching across and moving back like this. I'm trying to feel the motion. He comes forward and move with him and put him on perch and learn. I want to learn where this perching point is. I want to learn how far back I have to move and where I've got to position myself to where he's so far back that all I've got to do to throw him is step 1 inch in a relaxed fashion. It's not a case of me going like this and jerking his feet out from underneath him. So the grips for this, because this is a standard way to study off balance and movement and timing, the grips for this really center around how can I recognize a grip if he grabs me here. So the first way to do this, if he grabs, my hand is in a pushing position and I rotate and I move and step, and this feeds right into this grip right here, this coiled arm lock. And now it's very simple to come under my toe and throw. But I have to walk to it. I can't stand here with my feet like this and go like this and power through it. I have to move and walk to it as he comes forward. So if you watch, don't move your feet there. If I try to power through it, you can lock me down over here. But if I move and I walk to it this way, the hand comes over here, I'm gripping right there. Here's the grip right here. But I'm walking to it. Just like this. And it feeds perfectly into my touch. Now we add a little forward attack motion from Dave. It becomes very simple. But I have to walk to it. And the hand is there, right here, as I move. It's because the angle. In a second we'll show what happens if the angle changes too severely, but for now, this first release is here. The angle is straight, enabling me to step offline and come right underneath here. It feeds in right just like this. So the angle of the arm is a study here in terms of I can grip at this point right here. And people look at this and go, what's the Arandori application? He pushes my face. That's the Arandori application. But I have to recognize that the grip is right there and that the grip exists. Everybody see it? Try this for a few minutes, please. How does it? A few minutes left. Let me add the second grip onto this and do a couple of clarification points that might help your view of it, and let you practice these two until it's time to break for lunch, if I understand the schedule correctly. When Dave attacks and comes forward and grabs me, if you look at where he's partially weak, down the line of the feet here, unless I catch body drop as the foot comes down, go ahead and take a step back. If I catch this body drop down this way, he's weak this way. But once he grabs and the foot hits this way in the line of his feet, he's partially fairly strong. It's hard to deal with him this way. So one of the things this release does, it teaches that he's weak perpendicular to the line of his feet. And then in this case, I'm not pulling him backwards. That's a different, off balance, a different idea. But I'm breaking his posture forward, and the way I'm doing this, don't move your feet at all, is as I move, I step off, and I take this and I turn. If you notice, I'm taking this hand and I'm pushing it in a line perpendicular to his feet. And this is where the initial off balance for the second release motion is, right here. So if I'm doing the release, just the raw release, I move, I break him, and I move in behind him. But in this case, I've got to maintain the same initial off balance this way, except now my hand is such that as I move, it comes over the top and I pick the grip up. Sometimes you'll find yourself having difficulty picking the grip up, and you'll discover that you're doing this. You're going one over here and two. Different off balance. If I take this step over here and break, why not throw semiotosh to his back corner? Because that's where the posture break has really been taken. What this release is studying is the idea he takes a step forward. As he does, there's his off balance over there, and I step and move with it right here. But all I'm doing now is adding the grip to it and fitting him behind for my touch. It's an easy movement, but it's hard to get sometimes. It's easy to miss because really I'm not trying to come out to here to grab like this and then move this way. I'm trying to combine all one motion to where I move this way here. But my initial off balance, my initial kazushi, is right here perpendicular to the line of his feet. Okay? So that's a clarification of that you want to probably play with. So the first one, we're sitting here and I start to move and my hand comes over the top. Remember I talked earlier about geometry? Well, this straight line enables me to, without moving my feet, to rotate this way, and the hand goes on top and closes and gives me the grip. Let's make an assumption that he steps differently, or I step differently, and now I'm not in position for this grip right here. I've moved, and I'm over here, and the hand is turned this way. Everybody can see what the hand is? Instead of being here, the hand, I've moved, and the hand is off. So now, if you stop yourself, and you catch yourself doing this, look how it breaks the wrist down. I'm having to reach backwards for it. So if you find yourself unable to pick this up because this geometry changes, and you discover that you're here, don't worry about it. Take the right hand, which should be in front of you, pick this up right here, and then move. And what you want to do is, if you've got a strong grip, it's difficult to wrench this thing off. So I move. Pick this up. I move until the geometry changes. The angle between our hands and arms becomes very acute between our forearms, and it pops out almost by itself because the hand simply won't grip at that angle, at that kind of an angle like that. So don't move your feet. It pops up by itself. It's easy to break loose. But if I come to here and grab and start going, you'll lock your feet down, you're done. You're toast. So I move, I take the step, pick this up, this pops off. Now I've got control of his wrist so that he can't back fist me. So I pick this up and take a form of Kutagaishi this way. So all we're doing is geometry, off balance, movement, and recognition of grips. Because this technique here, my sensei, when I did hand randori with him, this is one of his favorite movements. He caught me in this for years. This funny little Kotagaishi that's really effective because it's very much working on the center, because if I turn and push, look how it breaks him down. It's a really powerful Kotagaishi if you catch it right. You can't do it like this. You can't be out here going crank, crank, crank. I move, push through a center. But to get there, I've got to do the release, move, pop, free. And notice when I move, I'm square to him. I'm not coming up and I'm not splaying my body open. I'm not doing this. Because I'm hyper-exaggerating. I know nobody does that really, but I'm hyper-exaggerating to prove the point, because the second I come through and do this, I'm one-armed again. So if he's a decent player, what's he going to do at this point? Use both of his arms and put his hand right in my face. So I have to move, but I can't move so much I lose control of my body, because when I move I want to be square to him and control him, and that hand now can't get to my face. But the second I start to open up like this, I'm taking the backside hand completely out of the equation. Now I've got a lot of problems if he's a good player. So the two releases and the two grips, the first one is here, 1, 2. And the second one, the angle changes, 1, 2. So work on those till lunchtime. Play with a little bit, be gentle, be sensitive about the movement, look for the off balance. How does it, please?